Hello Wolfpack. I know some of you guys are holding Digibyte DGB and it's made some pretty, interesting to say the least price action in the past couple of months. Mainly this month, right? Last month in October, where you see that since, October the 1st is right here, we've literally just done nothing, like absolutely nothing, right? We've just moved sideways for an entire month. And obviously that's, stressing a lot of people out. A lot of people think they can, would have put their money in better places, but I really want to just emphasize for you guys that this isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? And I never said, and no one, I don't think anyone with, any kind of knowledge of the charts has ever said that DGB is necessarily a consistent grower. It's not, right? It's a fast mover. When it moves pretty quickly. Let's look at, for example, what happened here in December 2020, right? We just moved sideways for, about 3 months, and then we finally had a bit of a move, and within about 2 months or 3 months, we were up massively from around 2 cents to around 18 cents, right? So when it does move, it moves quite fast, and it moves at a steady upwards trend, but when it's not moving, this coin kind of just chills, right? It kind of just moves sideways. We've seen that a few times before, and it's kind of happening right now, right? Just an extensive sideways move, and I really want to emphasize the fact that, this is not abnormal price action, right? You can look at many coins in the market right now that aren't moving. Only a select few coins are actually doing something, and DGB is one of the coins that is just kind of sitting around. Not necessarily a bad thing, as you would say, is compression does lead to explosions, right? And we are compressing heavily, and we can look at the price action to suggest that. But first of all, what I want to see is the fact that we had this cup and handle formation. So we had this cup and we had this handle, and we broke out to the upside of this handle, but we kind of failed to do anything significant, right? We made a massive breakout, right? We broke out, over like 60%, 61% out of the handle. And if we take a measurement from the first test to the bottom to the first test to the top, and actually apply that to the breakout point, what we can see is that with the breakout points over here, DGB actually well outperformed what is expected to do from this handle formation, but from the cup formation, it really hasn't done much, and also it only broke out, and that breakout only held for a couple of hours, so it wasn't necessarily what we wanted to be seeing at all. On DGB, that puts us here at around 9 cents. We didn't see that. We saw here around 7.5 cents. So it was interesting. It was promising, but it was very short-lived, and I can sense the frustration in a lot of people, but I want to really point out that if we go to the weekly chart here, DGB did the same thing in the last cycle, right? Let's see in the last cycle here, we saw, this was September, October, November, all sideways, right? In November, we moved upwards slightly. We moved upwards from around 6 cents to around 15 cents in November. And then in December was when we started to have that upwards movement, right? So I really wouldn't be expecting much until December, but that's obviously relative, right? I did say from November we went from 6 cents to 15 cents. I mean, the equivalent of that would be moving from, say, 5 cents right now to around 12 cents by the end of November, which is up here, right? So we have a lot of work to do, and we definitely are going to be making some moves in November. I got no doubt about that, right? DGB is going to be making moves in November, no doubt. Like, I'm thinking, as I just said, if we are going in line with cyclical theory up to around 12 cents, a bare minimum would be around 9.5 cents at the top of this resistance zone, in my opinion, by the end of November. I think we're going to be moving upwards for sure. And there are indicators to suggest that as well. But what I want to say, and the main thing I want to say in this video, is the fact that, don't expect the massive move to come until December and January, because historically we just haven't seen that happen on DGB. I mean, I just showed you this chart here, and we kind of just moved sideways and downwards. And then in November we broke up a little bit, and December we saw massive moves, right? So from the start of December, we started around 12 cents and we ended at around 14 cents. Sorry, I mean, we started at around 1.2 cents and we ended around 14 cents. I've muddled up the numbers there. So we moved from around 5 cents or 6 cents sorry, I've completely stuffed up the numbers here. We moved from around 0.6 cents, okay, to around 1.2 cents in November in the last cycle, and then we moved up drastically in December and January. There's a lot of zeros. I'm kind of stuffing up the numbers, but you get the point, right? The point is November should be upside, but December and January should be the main event, right? The main event in December and January. So we can bring up some indicators here. We can see that on the VVPR, it kind of suggests, and this is a volume profile, which essentially is giving us an indication of where historical trading volume is happening, which gives us an indication on where the price will kind of find it hard to get through, right? You will notice that once we broke above this area of volume on the VVPR back here in April, we moved very quickly to the the upside, right? Because there's not much historical trading in that area. And so that just means that in that area, there's a hell of a lot of buying and not much selling, right? Because people are FOMOing in. So this spike in the VVPR stops at around 7.1 cents. So once we get above 7.1 cents, it should become increasingly easy for us to push to the upside. Now, what I do want to say is that this last move we saw just 2 days ago stopped at around 7.4 cents, right? So we got pretty close to breaking through, but essentially we were rejected not only by the VVPR, but also by our critical resistance zone, which is this red box, which we need for a continuation. Because once we flip this red box, we have flipped this entire structure, and we can continue to the upside quite confidently, right? So VVPR suggests we're going to have a bit of a tough time until around 7.2 cents, but once we get past that point, closing above that point consistently, we should be okay. If we look at the SMAs, we have the 12, 26, and the 100 SMA. All of those are compressed into a very tight area. I've used this analogy many times. When you, for example, hold the beach ball under the water for an extensive period of time, when you finally let go, it's going to come up out of the water and it's going to jump, right? It's the same thing with compressing in charts, compressing price action in charting, right? Same thing happened here. Look, we had compression of the SMAs, we had it for an extensive period of time, and eventually we kind of had that trigger moment and we just bounced out, right? We just bounced out. And the same thing's happening here, right? So we're expecting a bounce out of that area. As for something else, let's remove these circles here. We can look at the Bollinger Bands, and same thing with Bollinger Bands, right? Same thing happened here in January last year. So we had a compression in the Bollinger Bands where the bands got tighter and tighter and tighter, and then eventually there was not much room to move, and so it just exploded, right? How small are these Bollinger Bands right now? We haven't seen Bollinger Bands this tight together for a long time on DGB, since all the way back here in October last year. So what are we expecting? Well, a move to the upside, and we've already seen that DGB actually wants to do that, right? We saw that massive move that was instantly sold down, but we did see that massive move. So it shows us, it's showing us, it's literally telling us that, hey, as a coin, I want to move to the upside, but I'm finding it a hard time. And the reason being, it's not actually DGB's fault. If we look at the altcoin market cap quickly before we go back to DGB, the reason we're having struggles, a hard time breaking out, and this is not just for DGB, but a lot of altcoins as well, is because we're coming up on a very critical resistance area on the altcoin market cap, which is the total 2 index, right? So ever since around May this year, and we came up again in September, and we're coming up again now, 1.5 trillion has been a very interesting psychological support zone that we've just struggled to get through, right? Each time we came up in this resistance zone, altcoins are kind of just stagnating and not really breaking out because there's not much room for them to go, right? There's nowhere for them to go. So once we break 1.5 trillion in the altcoin market cap and bounce and then head to the upside, we should be seeing altcoins making some massive moves, giving them some breathing space ultimately. But we'll go back to DGB right now and we'll look at some other indicators. We can look at the bull market support band, right, which is the 21-week SMA, the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA, and we can see that, well, in recent price action, recent days, what we did is we jumped above it, and we came back down, and we actually failed to considerably close above it, and we're still, testing the 21-week EMA as resistance, right? So we still have failed to hold above that, and that's not good. That's not good, right? Even here in September, when we broke above it, we only held it for one daily candle and dropped below. So we haven't actually consistently held this for support since May this year. So that's another target we want to be looking at. That's about 5.6 cents we need to be breaking above and closing above in order to hold that, and that would give DGB some breathing room, but we're likely not going to do that until the altcoin market cap breaches 5 trillion quite confidently. So there's a lot of things that are not related to DGB that are causing it to compress. It's the same thing with many altcoins right now. I really want you to understand that just because DGB isn't moving, it doesn't mean it's DGB's fault, right? There's a lot of other factors in this market that are outside of just your individual coin. We can look at the 50 SMA and the 200-day SMA, and essentially the 50 has been flipped, so there is a bright side to the move we had upwards, even though it was fully retraced. Basically, we have managed to flip this 50 SMA, and that's bullish. That gives us some extra support, so we have support now at around 5 cents. If we drop below that region, it would be scary, but I don't think we are. I think we're going to hold above 5 cents for now. That's about a 10% leadway, because we've flipped that 50 SMA, so we shouldn't be closing any daily candles below that anymore. I think that's a flip for sure now. So the next target would be the 6.6 cents, which is the 200-day SMA, the green line there. And once we flip that, historically, it's very unlikely for us to flip back below it within a short period of time. So we look kind of good on that, and we can also see there is a potential for a bullish MACD cross using these SMAs at some point in the future, possibly into December, which would trigger the massive explosive December and January movement. So we don't look too bad on the 4-hourly chart, right? This is the 4-hourly chart. I wanted to point something out on a lower time frame. We broke out, obviously this is a cup and handle formation, but we also have this ascending triangle that if we negate this move downwards here, which was caused by Bitcoin, we can see that we're pretty clearly bouncing between an ascending triangle, and this goes in line with what we were saying before. Well, we're seeing a massive compression in price, and we're seeing a massive compression in SMAs, right? Even on the 4-hourly chart. So, you know, what is next? Well, we had a breakout to the upside. It didn't last. We retraced back inwards. But ultimately, the next move would either be a retest of 5.2 cents and then a breakout, or just a breakout right now. So let's see what happens there. The point is, DGB should be making a move sooner rather than later, right? Sooner rather than later, within the next few days, I would imagine. So on the weekly chart and coming into price predictions on DGB, I want to note out that we do have a bullish MACD cross that is incoming within the next week, right? Probably next week we'll see a bullish MACD cross, so that's good to see as well, and that could trigger an explosion for sure. As for the Bollinger Bands, we can see that, you know, in the last cycle, we were below the center line for a while during September and October. What have we done now? We've been below it for a while, and we've recently closed one candle above it. The last time we closed a candle above the Bollinger Bands in the last cycle, we just went parabolic. I don't think that's going to happen again yet, but the point is, it's a bullish sign, right? It means that we have room to move, and we can see the structure is very similar, right? We had widening out, thinning in, and then widening out, right, on both sides, and that widening out led to an explosion. What we're seeing right now is widening out, and we're thinning in, and now we're going to be widening out soon as we see an explosion. So the patterns are lining up for sure. If we look at price predictions, and this is what I want to get into most importantly, what we can do first and foremost is take our regular price prediction target, which is actually our price prediction for DGB is 41 cents for this cycle. And the reason for that is because, well, and this is what I use for all altcoins, right? But I do have a fractal after this that is more convincing in my opinion. The reason I do this is because, well, DGB reached a price of around 18 cents when Bitcoin reached a price of 64K. Assuming Bitcoin goes to my personal price target of 113K by January the 6th, and adding 50% returns to DGB, that would bring us to a price point of around 41 cents. Now, that is a vague price prediction based off a prediction model we use for every single coin, so it doesn't mean it's going to be perfectly accurate because it's not specific to DGB, it's just a general market price prediction. But as for a fractal, what we can see is we've done something very similar in this cycle to what we did in the last cycle. We saw a peak here in June or May, around May we saw a peak. We saw a peak here in early May, right? So it's very similar, and we've come down all the way through, and we only started moving up in November and December. We've come down all the way through, and we're probably going to start moving up in November. So it's a very similar cycle to the last cycle, and what we can do is we actually can take that fractal and try our best to apply it. Now, obviously, it's not going to be perfect, and this is why fractals are meant to be rough guidelines rather than set in stone price predictions, but we can apply it to something like this, and we can see that DGB should be reaching a price point, according to this fractal, of around 31 cents. Therefore, what we can do is we can say that DGB should be reaching between 31 and 41 cents by the end of the cycle. That's what I'm looking at personally. As for the Bitcoin pair, we're not going to reach all-time highs in the Bitcoin pair, right? Our all-time high is around 2,500 sats. We're currently sitting at 90. It's a bit unrealistic to say we're going to reach all-time highs on the Bitcoin pair for sure. But what we can do is we can zoom up and we can get an idea of some of the shorter-term price action. Now, we did have that surge in Bitcoin dominance, and that led DGB to go down. But as I am expecting a somewhat bullish November for DGB, I should expect us to bounce off of this 64 to 65 sat support zone for DGB. Probably not go much lower than that, and bounce into our resistance zone here at 173. And as the bull market continues, I would expect us to break upwards to around, I think anywhere between 693 and 834 sats, right? Because we do have very sharp upwards movements historically, right? Every single bull market. I mean, look at the size of this move, right? This is just 3 weeks. We moved up massively. This is just 2 weeks over here. So when we see that bull market go parabolic, we should see something like that, right? And then a spike downwards. I'm not expecting it to be as big due to the fact that, there are more altcoins in the market now, more money spread out to more places, so you can't expect Bitcoin dominance moves to reach all-time highs too regularly. So, but I think that's a decent amount of gains, right? That's almost a 10x on the Bitcoin dominance chart. On the DGB Bitcoin chart. From current prices. So, between 693 sats and 834 sats by the end of the cycle, I think that seems reasonable to me. Just clarifying a few points of what I've said in this video, and that is that November, I'm expecting DJB to start its move in November, right? Start moving up pretty nicely, and then December and January will be the bulk, right? Specifically January, I'm thinking specifically January. So get ready for it. It's coming. Your patience will be rewarded from what I'm seeing on the charts. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, that's not financial advice. Do your own research. But, you know, from what I'm seeing, we're just seeing a replay of what we had in January 2021 or December 2020, where we just moved sideways before a big explosion. That's what I'm seeing on the charts personally. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.